Hello again. I thought this time I'll put together a little video on Apple Motion's 3D objects, and what I've done here, as you can see, there's a cube there. Right now I'm looking at the left side. If I swing it around, put it on the front, there it is there. And I put a second, in order to get a different color, I just used the 3D tennis ball, which is here. Now, firstly, I've formed a group. I'm going to rename that 3D. I like to set my projects up with a group and then include the items I want in there. Sometimes, as you'll see, another section I'm doing, there's could be several going on here. But firstly, just so you know what I've done, I've gone to the library and into 3D objects and picked a few of these items. So I've got the tennis ball there. I've pulled up one of the cubes there, wherever it is. There it is there. So I've got those in place. What I've done basically is just tried to make this reasonable size compare, with the same proportions as a 1920 by 1080. I found firstly it's very difficult to actually get actual sizes here in this particular program, but it does pretty well anyway. As you see, as I click around to the different directions, and you can see here I can change these as well here. It's good to actually first go into Inspector here and be aware of your anchor points. When you make a 3D object, its anchor point is set right in the center of it. This can be changed here or animated with the keyframes. And position is here. It's 0, 0, 0, and zone rotation. So each one has its individual directions and positions. As you see with the cube, because I'm looking at the left, as I move the anchor point, it changes its position within the space. So I'll put that back to 0. So the tennis ball is sitting exactly in the center of the cube. Swing it around, actually put it on the front. So the idea of this video is to start with how we navigate through. So generally that's with the anchor point, or if you click on the tennis ball itself, you start moving to position, then you're moving in space. And as you notice down there, the active camera is coming up with its position as well, X and Y. You don't notice it too much front and back, but you can find where the Y goes up and down. And if you change back left side, the Z position will change front to back. So that's basically the navigation side of things. It's very important, I think, to actually know where you are first of all, and this is because this can get quite complicated as you start changing angles of things. If I take the cube and change the angle a little bit, and then when you start moving the anchor point, it works with the direction it's going, like that. So I'll put it back on front. So I change the angle. I'm going to reset again, and I'll reset the anchor points. So everything goes back to 0 anyway. So this little section, I'm just touching on how the objects move within the 3D space. Often a bit confusing when you're working with multiple objects. I'm going to open another one, which is the cones. Now this is again, if we look on front, there it is. So as you see, what's in here are the lights. As I was saying before, when you have your groups, I like to sort of keep everything organized. So if I open up the lights, I've got 3 different colors. Within these, I've got 3 different red lights. You can see the overlay there. And just so you know, sometimes when you're manipulating things, it's you can just take the overlay off if it's getting in your way of seeing the position of it. But I'll put this back on so that we see what we're doing. So as you see, I've got three red lights. There's one at the bottom, one in the middle, one on the top. This is basically a little section on how lighting works. So with the light, you're in your inspector, and if you look at the lights, you can first look at the properties and see where you are. So I've got rotations on those and positions. You can change those to zero that back out. And again, the reference is based on 0Y and 0X here, so it pertains to navigation. And down here I've got the angles here. As you change the angle, you can see the light moving around. I chose red, green, and blue so that you can see how the different lights intermix with each other. But when you have red and green, you're getting a magenta color, and blue and green, you're getting your cyan, and green and red, you're getting yellows. So this is where these are all mixing. So now you can see where the lights are compared to the cones that I've put here. I use those just so you can see how the light falls on them. Again, with the lights, you do have a choice. It's a nice little setup here where you can change the color to whatever you want. Make it magenta, make it yellow, that sort of thing. You can adjust your intensity. So for the purpose of demonstration, I just got everything maxed out. And you also have a cone angle. Now each of these lights I've got them all set to the same diameter, same cone angle, again just for demonstration purposes, but you can widen and narrow the beam. If you'll notice with the spotlight, you have properties of position, X, Y, Z, and rotation. If you go to ambient, then you'll find it's just nothing. There's no properties to adjust. It's just ambient light. If you change to directional, again, you've got X, Y, Z in position and rotation. And if you change it to point light, then you only have position. Depending on what style of lighting you want to do, I've chosen spot because it tends to show up a bit better for the demonstration. Each of these lights are there. So I got a couple of greens on the left side and right side. We have control here as well. This is direction. So just be mindful of when you're in properties, the angles. These can be changed back as well. Lighting can be very helpful, especially working in 3D objects. In Apple Motion, there doesn't seem to be any way of making the colors work. You just have the white. I've tried colorizing it, but I'll show you in a minute what happens there. It messes up how they join together. So this is a little bit more complicated. And as you see, these are all these ceiling, walls, floor. And this is what I was talking about hierarchy. We've got a group for the room. We've got a group for the body. And that's this little robot guy here. Again, I've got it set up with arm, left and right, spine, leg, left and right. But within those subgroups, there's an arm and a forearm. So when you want to start animating these things, and I'll just hit play so you can see what I mean. I'll bring the active camera up too. So the arms, I have it as a unit, which can be animated, and then I have the upper arm and forearm. You can change those properties as well. As you see, I've got the arm sort of moving on the XY axis a little bit. I got the rotation there. You can just move that a bit, but what happens is when you move the individual arm, you are taking it away from the forearm. So this is why I set this other group up, so these can be adjusted as a unit. And of course, we've got the lighting going on here. We've got a top one, which is an ambient in red. I've got a right, which is directional. And you notice when I put anything that's with ambient, it doesn't really have a overlay for that because it's just ambient. It just fills the whole space. And then the bottom here is a point light, and left is a spotlight. And these, of course, can be animated as well. So this is the hierarchy, and it really helps when, especially when you're doing complicated animations like this. You can animate down here at the close that up, open up the foot. The foot is sort of changing its angle a little bit by itself, but I've moved the anchor points, which I'm going to touch on in a minute. I've made the anchor point so it's at the heel section, and the leg is not really doing anything. I could animate that as well, say with the hip, but then this is where I've used the group of everything, so I can changing its angle and it's moving everything together as a unit. So this is a general idea of how the 3D world works in Apple Motion. I found there's some limitations to it, but on the same token, if I've used After Effects as well, and it's a lot more difficult. So there's pros and cons to both of those programs. So you can see here the room isn't moving. I've got nothing there, but you can change the room position here, in and out. And if we just keep an eye on the left side, you can get an idea where everything is. If you click on the body, you'll see, although you can't see the body itself, you can see the overlays doing their business. So this gives you an opportunity then to adjust where the room is compared. And lastly, I'm going to I'll switch the lighting, body, and room off. So now we can just look at this third example. So these are all just 3D brushes, which I have, it's really a shape, really. And I've given it a type. You can change the type to solid, or you can change it to image. I use airbrush because for this, I wanted to get some sort of a glowing effect on there. And you can change the width and all that. And if you look at the properties of that brush, its blend mode is on add. You can change that to, and just so you see, there is a way of, I've got the layers set up, layer columns. You can choose other items like opacity, blend mode, that sort of thing. So if you can take that right off, and then you've got nothing. Put opacity, then all of a sudden you've got opacity there. Shows all the opacities for the layer columns. So I've got that in a group. I've got that one in a group. It's basically just copies of the same, but then I've changed the angles a little bit. You see there, I can change the angle of the group. There's 3 brush shapes in there. I've got the anchor point set at the one side of it, focal point there. Again, and depending on how you're working it, but here I've got the anchor point set at 400. So they're all set at 400, so they're right at the end of the brush stroke. These all centered out so that they form this star formation. So if I switch off each one of these, you can see how they're being added. And as you notice, there's on this layer here, it's a minus sign. If you see that, it means that something in the group switched off. So we switch that back on. Everything's good. So that's your 3D brush. So if you hit Shape Styles, you can find the 3D brush there. These are all solid, so they may not be 3D, but so I've just added a 3D brush to it. It's good to make sure your playhead is at the beginning of that so that you can fill the whole thing. Okay, so we've got this 3D brush up here. And if we go into Inspector, we have the shape. Put the outline back on. You can change the color. If you have 2 of these, you go to Properties. Just before I do that, I'll show you geometry. So with the geometry, it basically has 2 points, and there's your position there. You can change position here. So you've got that. And also you can create a linear and make it straight, and B-spline, which doesn't seem to operate when this you close it. So I think it's just basically Bezier, which is a curve, or linear, which is straight. And if we go up here and we add a camera, then the camera we can use to sort of look at different angles of it. You can also do that with your front and left sort of thing. So perspective. So sometimes when you're manipulating these things, you need to be able to spin around and look at different ways. So if we go to the top, for example, see how those are pretty much lined up. I'll put that back to the front. Now this is where it's good to look at your anchor point. So your anchor point's there, and then when you rotate, rotates around. So if we go up here, we'll just move this position a little bit. So this is where sometimes these brush shapes can work pretty well. So we'll go to that first 3D brush. What I'm going to do is set the parameters again. Leave the anchor point there, and we'll just check the top. See, the anchor point's good there as well. Right now we have one other control of the anchor point. Down here at the selection transform, you can use the anchor as well, and then you can drag the anchor point to the end of that. So now when you rotate, and we can then move the position to join up with the other one. And of course you can hit shift and select both of those, create a new group. Now you've got these grouped up, and now with this group you can move everything together, rotate it around. As you see, these two being joined up it still has a funny sort of join there, so it doesn't really look that crash hot. So I'm going to delete and delete. And just one final thing in this group, I'm going to just bring in a 3D object again, cube, hit apply. I'll duplicate that. Wanted to show you what happens when you select a filter and you try to colorize. First of all, I will rotate that around, move it down a little bit. So I'll put that at -45. And now when we look at the top, you can see it's just two shapes that are they look pretty much like a solid joined up. But if you take the group and you want to colorize it, I've seen this where people suggest just using colorize. Now this does give you a color, but as soon as you apply it, it doesn't really give you, you can change the colors there to whatever you like. But as you see, when I rotate these around, I don't really, that's the group rotating, but the colorization seems to just mess up the anchor points and everything. This is why I use lighting on the shapes so that they illuminate a little differently. So this is the one drawback of these shapes. First, go into the group, the filter, switch that back off. So as you see, when you colorize something, it messes it up. Whereas if you add a light to it, reset. So there's my light. But as you see, it tends to give it a bit more of a solid effect to it. And there's one other somewhat of a cheat is, so you have the 3D text. So we have the text, center it, we can make it larger. And then once we have our text layer, we can go back in the library and apply different styles that way. And then once you're in there, you can look at the text and you can assign some depth, offsets, things like that, scales. You change the font itself. As you see, as you scroll around, you get, that one looks interesting. We've got our layout. We can lay it out here, sort of thing. So all these, I'll leave this for your experimentation. So you can first adjust the, as you see, it's going front and back, with this side to side. You can rotate it. You can change the anchor point, as you see there. This anchor point there. And then when you rotate, it rotates around the anchor point there. Opacity, that sort of thing. Lighting and shading, all that. So it's good to experiment around with these as well. So, we got appearance. And we can change the depth of it. If you want to and type in a period, for example. Now you've got a period that's a 3D. You can change the color. I'll duplicate that so we can get a couple different colors going. You can then change your size. You can move it around position-wise. So we got that, and then we can go to library and materials, and then we can apply a different material. Now these are very basic shapes using letters, and you can probably put a third one on here. Maybe try a backslash or something. Now you've got that. You can helps if you do 3D text there. Now we'll try it again. So now you got a 3D text. Go up and build the size up, rotate it around. So you got some shapes that you can use from the letters as well. That way you have the option of appearance. Then we can go down here to and get different colors going, and so now we have a gold bar there. So that's 3D in a nutshell. I hope this helps shed some light on how these operate, but it's certainly not a program like what you'd use, a professional program, but it certainly does give you some option to play around with some shapes, as you see here with these two cubes joined in. You can do multiples of that and make some interesting shapes in 3D space. And put the camera, one final thing, find the camera, switch it on. So now we've got a camera here, which I'm going to reset. Now that is that group there, which is here. As you see there, the little inset window there. So we've got in reverse Z space. So I'll just get rid of these so they don't clutter up too much. So we've got this cube. To recap, we can rotate the cube around this way, but we can also take the camera and we can set the camera up first. You have viewpoint, which is from the camera's point of view, and you have framing, which is framing the object. So its focus point is on the anchor point is set on the object itself, where in viewpoint the anchor point is set on the camera itself. So if I show you, say, top view, H for hand to move that down a little bit. So as you see, there's the camera, and it's framed here. So when you rotate the camera, it's rotating around the object. If you change to viewpoint, Now you're rotating. So say you want to do a quick animation. We just go ahead and hit all the rotation, hit the, and then we'll just move the playhead forward a little bit. Now this we can just firstly go back to, while I'm here, I'll just show you in certain circumstances you have all these to choose from. Edit points, that sort of thing. Edit the shape, but we'll go to transform. So now we got the camera here, and we had it there. We, if you're ever wondering what is what, you can always use these arrows, and you'll notice that because it's going along, because the angles changed a little bit, there's multiple of these positions are changing. And then you have the angle as well, which is hard to see from there. We'll go to the front, and now we have green. There's the red, that's this way. This one here turns it that way. And you can turn it, spin it around. So now as we go back to active camera, so now the camera plays, it's moving in and panning around like that. So a bit to play with anyway, a bit of information to look at, and I encourage you to experiment around. Try not to be too frustrated with it, because it can be a bit daunting. But the one thing to just take away, I think most important, is to navigate properly, set up your groups and hierarchies, and plan how you want your setup here, how you're going to arrange all your different sides and everything there. So as you see, I've got within this one group, I've got 5 different elements which are all categorized, and then they have their own components within. So it's really good to organize yourself that way as well first, but the rest is just knowing your navigation, and whenever you run into trouble, just maybe change the angle so you can see where you are, and then just learn your XYZ axes, and just remember that when you're looking at it from the side, your x-axis is in and out, and Y is up and down, and Z is front to back, side to side. So just play around with your different perspectives as well, and so you can just have a bit of fun animating some items. So I'll leave you with it. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing for you. I'm just learning myself, so I figure as I put these projects together, mainly so that I can actually experiment around, I figure, why not share it? So it might help somebody that's sort of struggling on something. I noticed in a lot of the forums you go to the discussions in Apple Motion, that sort of thing, it's a lot of questions about things. So I look at those, and I try to work it out. So leave you to it. Hopefully it was helpful for you, and just happy animating. Take care.